Good evening, dear friend. Tonight we journey to ancient forges, where divine fire shaped both metal and destiny itself. Tell me, where are you right now as you listen to this tale? What time is it in your corner of the world? There's something beautiful about knowing that stories connect us across distances, whether you're watching midnight stars or enjoying evening quiet. Picture yourself settling deeper into warmth and comfort as we visit the workshops of heaven itself. Close your eyes if you wish. We're traveling back to when gods walked among mortals, when craft itself was divine art. In the golden halls of Olympus, where perfection was expected and beauty was currency, Hera, queen of gods, faced a bitter truth. Her husband Zeus had birthed Athena from his own head, fully formed and brilliant, without need of wife or marriage bond. The insult burned deeper than any mortal slight, cutting to the heart of divine pride itself. So Hera, in her wounded fury, decided to prove that she too could create without masculine aid. She would bear a child through will alone, through divine power concentrated and pure. The labor was unlike any birth before, divine energy crackling through marble halls, as Hera's determination took physical form. From her anger and pain and stubborn pride emerged a son. But the child was not what she had hoped, not the perfect rival to Athena's brilliance. Instead, he was small and twisted of limb, his left leg bent at impossible angle. His face, though noble, carried marks of struggle, the price of birth through divine rage. Hera looked upon her son and felt only disappointment sharp as winter wind. This was not the triumph she had envisioned, not the perfect child who would prove her worth. In that moment of crushing maternal rejection, the goddess made a choice that would haunt her through endless ages. She cast the infant from Olympus heights, hurling him toward the mortal world below. The newborn god fell like a star torn from heaven's embrace, tumbling through clouds and morning mist toward the wine-dark sea. His cries echoed across the vast emptiness between divine and mortal realms, a sound of pure anguish that would have moved even stone to pity. For a full day and a full night, he plummeted through space, his tiny body buffeted by winds that cared nothing for divine blood. When he finally struck the ocean surface, the impact should have killed any mortal child. But gods are made of sterner stuff, and though he sank beneath the waves, his immortal nature kept breath in lungs and beat in heart. The sea nymphs Thetis and Eurynomy found him drifting in the depths like a broken pearl cast from divine crown. They lifted him gently with hands that had never known cruelty, carrying him to a grotto hidden beneath the waves. There, in that secret place where sunlight filtered down in golden shafts, they tended his wounds and soothed his tears. For 9 long years he would live beneath the ocean's protection, learning that kindness could exist without condition, that love could be given freely and without thought of reward. The sea became his first teacher, showing him that beauty could be found in movement, in the dance of currents, in the way light played through water. Here among the creatures of the deep ocean, he learned that perfection was not the only form worth loving. In the underwater grotto surrounded by coral walls and singing fountains, young Hephaestus discovered something that would define his entire existence. The sea nymphs, in their kindness, had brought him treasures from sunken ships, metals, and stones that mortals had lost to ocean's embrace. At first he played with these objects as any child might, but soon his hands began to move with purpose. He found that heat from underwater vents could soften metal, that pressure and patience could shape what seemed unchangeable. His twisted leg and scarred hands became advantages here, giving him strength others lacked, patience others could not sustain. The first thing he made was a simple cup hammered from silver lost by some merchant. But in his hands the metal became more than mere vessel. It became expression of gratitude for kindness shown by sea nymphs. When Thetis saw what he had created, she wept with wonder, for she recognized in his work something that transcended physical beauty. Here was a god who could take broken things and make them whole, who could find beauty in utility and purpose. Word of his skill spread through ocean depths, and creatures came from far and wide to see the young god work his magic. He made jewelry for the daughters of Poseidon, armor for seahorse guards, tools for those who tended underwater gardens. With each creation his confidence grew, and with it his understanding that his worth lay not in appearance, but in what his hands could bring to life. After 9 years beneath the waves, Hephaestus had grown into a god whose skill was whispered about even in heaven's halls. His reputation as craftsman had reached the ears of Zeus himself, who began to wonder about the child Hera had cast away. The king of gods was not sentimental, but he was practical, and a divine smith could be useful to Olympian court. So he sent messengers to the ocean depths, commanding the young god to return home. Hephaestus felt mixed emotions about this summons. Part of him longed for acceptance, for a place among his divine family. But another part remembered the rejection, the pain of falling, the years of exile. Still, he could not refuse the command of Zeus himself. He bid farewell to the sea nymphs who had been his only family, promising to remember their kindness always. When he arrived at Olympus' gates, the other gods stared in wonder at his transformation. No longer the broken infant cast into exile, but a powerful figure whose hands bore calluses from endless work, whose eyes held wisdom earned through suffering. His limp remained, a reminder of his fall, but he wore it now not as badge of shame, but as proof of survival and growth. Hera could not meet his eyes directly, for in them she saw a reflection of her own maternal failure. But Zeus welcomed him with the pragmatic warmth of a king who recognizes useful talent. Zeus granted Hephaestus a place on Olympus, but more importantly he gave him domain over fire and forge over all crafts that required skill of hand and mind. The young god set about creating a workshop unlike any the world had seen. Deep beneath the mountain's peak, where heat of Earth's core could fuel his fires, he built chambers filled with anvils and hammers of every size. The forge burned with flames that never died or dimmed, fed by divine will and earthly heat. Here he began to create wonders that amazed even immortal eyes. Thrones that adjusted to any who sat, automatons of gold that could move and speak, weapons that never dulled or broke. But his greatest joy lay not in grand creations, but in simple things perfectly made. A cup that kept wine always at perfect temperature, a mirror that showed not just appearance, but inner beauty. His workshop became a place of pilgrimage for gods who needed something crafted with divine skill. But more than that, it became refuge for those who felt out of place among Olympian perfection. Here skill mattered more than beauty, purpose more than form, and those who worked with their hands found welcome and understanding. Rest deeper into comfort now, as we follow Hephaestus on his journey from rejection to divine purpose. Let your thoughts settle gently, as we continue to explore the god who found beauty in utility and craft. Breathe softly, as we discover how love can grow in the most unlikely places, In the deepest chambers of his divine workshop, where flames burned hottest and metal flowed like liquid starlight, Hephaestus began his greatest work. Not weapons for war or thrones for kings, but companions for his loneliness, creations that would ease the ache of isolation. From purest gold refined in sacred fires, he shaped two maiden forms perfect in every detail, more beautiful than any mortal woman born. Their faces were works of art beyond compare. Their bodies moved with grace that rivaled divine dancers themselves. But these were not mere statues. They were automatons filled with divine spark, given breath and voice, and something approaching what mortals called life. When first they opened eyes of sapphire blue and spoke in voices soft as summer rain, Hephaestus felt joy deeper than any he had known before. Here was acceptance without condition given, companionship that would not judge or reject, beauty that served rather than demanded worship. The golden maidens became his assistants, helping in the forge, organizing tools, bringing him sustenance when work consumed all thought of rest. They learned his moods, anticipated needs, offered comfort when divine politics or family slights weighed heavy on his scarred shoulders. In their presence he felt almost whole, almost worthy of the love he had always craved. Zeus watched his son's growing skill and influence with the calculating eye of a king who saw opportunity in every situation. Hephaestus had become indispensable to Olympus, creating wonders that made divine life more pleasant, weapons that ensured their continued supremacy. But the smith god remained solitary, content with his work and golden companions, showing little interest in divine society. This worried Zeus, for gods who stood apart could become dangerous, their loyalties uncertain, their powers potentially turned against the throne. So the king of gods conceived a plan, both reward and chain, gift and obligation. He would give Hephaestus what every god desired, what his scarred heart had always yearned for, the love of the most beautiful goddess in existence. Aphrodite, newly arrived from Cyprus shores, was power incarnate, love given form, beauty that could topple kingdoms with a smile. But her very perfection made her dangerous, a force that could unite or destroy as easily. By binding her to steady Hephaestus, Zeus hoped to contain both potential problems, making useful alliance from dangerous elements. The marriage was announced with great ceremony, all Olympus invited to witness the union of fire and love, craft and beauty, the steady and the sublime. Aphrodite received news of her arranged marriage with emotions that shifted like ocean tides between fury and resignation. She had tasted freedom on Cyprus shores, had known what it meant to choose her own path, to love where her heart led her footsteps. Now Zeus, in his wisdom, would cage her beauty, bind her to a god she had never chosen, never even truly seen. When she looked upon Hephaestus, she saw skill and kindness, nobility and patience, qualities she could respect, but could not love. His twisted leg, scarred hands from forge work, gentle manner that spoke of deep loneliness moved her to pity, but not to passion. She knew herself too well to pretend that duty could replace desire in her heart. Yet she also understood the futility of rebellion against Zeus's will. The wedding proceeded with magnificent pomp, golden halls filled with divine celebration. Ambrosia flowed like rivers, music played by muses, flowers bloomed wherever Aphrodite walked. But beneath the joy, tension hummed like wires stretched too tight, for all could see the bride's distant eyes, the groom's hopeful glances, the mismatch between devotion and duty. Hephaestus gazed upon his new wife with wonder, hardly believing that such perfect beauty could be his to cherish. Aphrodite moved through the ceremony like sleepwalker in dream, radiant but remote, present but not truly there in her heart. In the months that followed their strange marriage, Hephaestus poured all his considerable skill into winning his wife's affection through craft. Every morning brought new gifts created in fires of devotion, jewelry that captured starlight in precious metals, mirrors that showed only flattering reflections, combs that made golden hair shine like liquid sunlight. He built her palaces of ivory and gold, gardens where flowers bloomed in perfect harmony, fountains that sang with voices sweeter than any nightingale. Each creation was prayer wrought in precious metal, hymn to her beauty sung in diamonds bright. But Aphrodite received these offerings with polite appreciation that never warmed to genuine affection. She thanked him kindly, praised his remarkable skill, wore his jewelry to please his eager eyes, but her heart remained untouched by devotion. She wandered their palace like caged bird exotic, beautiful but restless, admired but not truly free to soar. Hephaestus, watching her with eyes that saw too much and too clearly, understood that love could not be forged like metal in fire, could not be shaped by will alone. But still he hoped with patience of mountains that time might soften her heart toward him. Into this delicate domestic balance came Ares like storm sweeping across peaceful landscape, leaving chaos in his wake. The god of war had always been the wildfire to Apollo's gentle sunshine, raw chaos that balanced Athena's careful order. Where other gods sought glory through wisdom or artistic beauty, he found his purpose in honest clash of bronze on bronze. His halls echoed with battle songs of fallen warriors, his feasts seasoned with tales of heroic deeds performed in humanity's darkest hours. He was feared by mortals below, barely tolerated by fellow gods above who saw him as necessary but crude, useful but unrefined. Then Aphrodite entered his awareness like dawn breaking over blood-soaked battlefield, bringing beauty to places that knew only violence and death. At feast celebrating victory over giants, she sat beside her husband patient, listening to tales of metallurgy, her eyes distant as stars themselves. But when she glanced across crowded hall and met Ares' burning gaze directly, something shifted in cosmic balance. Here was recognition, soul calling to soul across vast loneliness that defined immortal existence. They spoke that night not with words, but with glances, meaningful looks, and half-suppressed smiles, each recognizing in the other kindred spirit burning with same divine fire. Let peace flow through you now, as love awakens in unexpected places. We continue forward to witness passion that would challenge even divine law. Rest gently as we explore the price of choosing heart over duty, desire over safety given. Their courtship unfolded slowly in hidden places far from divine gossip, and Hephaestus's trusting wounded eyes that saw only what he wished. They met in sacred groves dedicated to no particular deity known, where ancient olive trees kept secrets older than Olympus itself. Places where mortal and divine worlds touched briefly at twilight, creating spaces outside normal rules governing immortal behavior. Ares would arrive disguised in mortal form, his usual divine radiance dimmed to avoid unwanted detection by wandering gods above. Aphrodite came as herself, for who could possibly mistake that transcendent beauty for anything merely mortal and ordinary? They walked together through enchanted gardens, where every flower bloomed more brilliantly for their divine presence. She taught him gently that love was not conquest through force, but willing surrender of guarded heart. Not taking what was desired most, but generous giving of treasures held dear. Not victory claimed through superior strength, but vulnerability willingly shared between equal souls. He showed her fierce joy of passion completely unashamed of its own burning intensity. Raw beauty of desire that refused to apologize for its existence in world of rules. Their love was neither gentle affection growing slowly through years of shared marriage vows, nor desperate hunger of first attraction between inexperienced hearts. Instead, it was perfect recognition complete, soul calling to soul across vast loneliness that defined immortal existence. Their divine secret could not remain hidden forever from eyes that knew how to look for subtle signs. Love leaves traces like footprints in wet sand after tide, visible to those who understand hearts in transition and change. Hephaestus began noticing his wife's growing distraction, way her twilight eyes would drift during conversation between them. New songs she hummed while wandering through their palace halls, melodies he had never heard in all his centuries of life. Her sudden interest in gardens and groves she had never bothered to visit during years of their marriage. He was not jealous by nature, being fundamentally secure in his own worth and divine purpose. But neither was he blind to changes occurring in someone he loved beyond his own existence. With infinite patience of master craftsman and deadly precision of divine smith, he began to forge most delicate trap ever created by immortal hands. Threads of bronze finer than spider silk, yet strong as mountain roots anchored deep in earth. Invisible as morning mist, yet capable of holding even divine strength captive in embrace. He wove magical bonds throughout private chamber, where his wife received her guests, creating net that would spring instantly at touch of guilty lovers caught in forbidden embrace. When Ares next came calling to his beloved, drawn by love stronger than wisdom or caution learned, the net fell like fate itself. The lovers were caught in their moment of perfect passion, beautiful as classical sculpture carved, but helpless as fish netted by fishermen. Bronze threads held them fast in embrace, neither able to move or break free from bonds forged with divine skill. Hephaestus stood in doorway of his own bedchamber, scarred face completely unreadable in shadows, holding in steady hands both triumph earned and devastating personal ruin. For long moments silence filled chamber, broken only by flames crackling in nearby braziers burning. Then slowly, deliberately, he began to speak, not in anger or bitterness deep, but in voice that carried weight of profound disappointment. He spoke of trust broken like precious vessel carelessly dropped, of love offered freely and completely only to be scorned and rejected, of years spent hoping that patience and devotion shown might win what could not be commanded or forced. His words fell like hammer blows on anvil of guilty silence, each one precise and perfectly placed to wound without destroying completely. Neither lover spoke in their defense, for they knew that no words could justify betrayal of innocent trust. With heavy heart and hands that trembled despite their legendary steadiness at forge, Hephaestus summoned all of Olympus to witness his private shame transformed into public justice. The gods came slowly, reluctantly called by duty, but arriving with hearts sympathetic. They found famous lovers still trapped in gleaming bronze threads, beautiful and helpless as figures carved from perfect marble. Apollo turned radiant face away, unable to bear the sight of love so exposed and vulnerable before all. Hermes whistled softly under his breath, impressed despite himself by exquisite craftsmanship of trap so cleverly designed. Even Zeus looked genuinely grave, knowing that this moment would reshape entire divine order established. the goddess of love and god of war together caught in their moment of absolute truth. Neither denying obvious guilt before all, nor begging pathetically for mercy they knew they could not deserve. Aphrodite met each divine gaze with dignity completely intact, chin raised proudly despite circumstances shameful. Her eyes remained calm as still pools reflecting infinite sky, showing no shame for choices made with full knowledge of consequences coming. She had chosen love over duty, passion over safe path of social propriety accepted. In quiet aftermath of divine judgment, when other gods had departed to spread gossip throughout realm, Hephaestus approached his wife with halting steps uncertain. His natural limp seemed more pronounced than usual today, broad shoulders bent under invisible weight of sorrow carried. He released bronze net with hands that trembled slightly despite their legendary steadiness, watching as his rival straightened with dignity intact and warrior's pride unbroken. The smith god spoke no words of anger bitterness, or harsh recrimination against either of them. Instead, he offered Aphrodite final gift, one last creation wrought carefully in fires of his forge. Cooled not in water, but in salt tears of his own profound grief felt. It was mirror unlike any he had ever made before in centuries of divine craftsmanship. This one showed not beauty as mortals typically defined, but love as it truly existed. Wild and uncontainable as storm winds, terrible and wonderful beyond any mortal comprehension possible. He had learned, through pain sharper than any forge fire, fundamental truth about love's true nature. It could not be crafted like metal or commanded like obedient servants. Love could only be offered freely and received with gratitude when it chose to bloom. Aphrodite accepted mirror with tears that fell like liquid diamonds, each drop more precious than any earthly treasure known. Breathe gently now, as forgiveness flows like healing water through broken hearts. We continue onward to discover how divine craft serves higher purpose than personal happiness. Rest softly as we follow journey of God who learned that true creation comes through sacrifice. With his marriage dissolved in sorrow, but his reputation as master craftsman enhanced by dignity shown in defeat, Hephaestus threw himself into his work with renewed passion. The gods of Olympus, impressed by his noble behavior and unmatched skill at forge, began bringing him commissions that would test even divine abilities to limit. Zeus himself appeared at workshop entrance with requests that would change the course of mortal history forever. The king of gods needed a woman created from clay, beautiful enough to enchant any man, clever enough to serve divine purpose, but cursed enough to bring about humanity's downfall deserved. This would be punishment for Prometheus, who had stolen fire from divine realm, giving mortals gift they were never meant to possess. Hephaestus listened to commission with heavy heart, understanding that his skill would be used not for creation, but for destruction. Yet he could not refuse Zeus's command, for he was still subject to divine hierarchy established. So he began work on what would become humanity's greatest blessing and most terrible curse combined. From finest clay mixed with divine essence, he shaped woman perfect in every aspect. Her face held beauty that would launch ships and topple kingdoms. Her voice carried music that could charm birds from trees. Her mind possessed cleverness that could outwit philosophers. But within her perfect form, Zeus placed seeds of curiosity that could not be satisfied, desire that could not be fulfilled, and most dangerous of all, hope that would never die. Day by day beneath his patient hands, the clay woman took shape with artistry that surpassed even his previous masterworks. Each feature was crafted with meticulous care, each curve designed to please mortal eyes, each gesture calculated to inspire love and trust. Her hair flowed like spun gold caught in afternoon sunlight. Her eyes held depths that promised understanding and compassion. Her smile could melt the hardest hearts. Her laughter could chase away winter's gloom. But Hephaestus knew that beneath this perfect exterior lay trap more deadly than any weapon forged. The other gods came to bless his creation with their own gifts, each adding elements that would serve their collective purpose. Athena taught her skills in weaving and household arts, making her irresistible to men seeking perfect wife. Aphrodite granted her beauty that would drive mortals to madness with desire. Hermes gave her silver tongue and cunning mind that could deceive without detection. Apollo blessed her with musical voice that could entrance any listener. Each gift was double-edged blessing, meant to serve divine vengeance rather than human happiness. When finally the creation was complete, Zeus breathed life into clay form and spoke her name, Pandora, she who was gifted by all gods. Hephaestus looked upon his masterwork with mixture of pride and sorrow, knowing he had crafted instrument of humanity's doom. Along with his perfect creation, Hephaestus was commanded to forge container that would hold all evils known to gods and men. This was no ordinary vessel, but prison designed to hold forces that could destroy world itself. Within its bronze walls were sealed war and famine, disease and death, hatred and despair, envy and revenge. All the dark impulses that gods had removed from their perfect realm were locked away in this deceptively beautiful box. Its surface gleamed like mirror, decorated with scenes of joy and celebration that would entice curious eyes. The lock was cunningly designed to resist all attempts at forced entry, but would open at gentlest touch of innocent hand. Hephaestus crafted it with skill that amazed even himself, creating mechanisms so subtle that its true purpose remained hidden from casual observation. He knew that mortal curiosity would inevitably lead to disaster, for humans could no more resist mystery than flames could resist fuel. The box would accompany Pandora to Earth as dowry gift, its presence explained as containing blessings from gods above. But Hephaestus alone knew truth of what lay within, and burden of knowledge weighed heavy on his already wounded heart. He had become unwilling instrument of divine cruelty, his gift for creation turned toward destruction of innocent mortals below. Pandora was sent to Earth as bride for Epimetheus, brother of Prometheus, who had warned him never to accept gifts from gods. But when divine messenger arrived with woman so beautiful she seemed descended from heaven itself, mortal wisdom fled before power of divine enchantment. Epimetheus forgot his brother's warnings, ignored voice of caution whispering in heart, and welcomed Pandora as answer to prayers he had never dared speak. Their wedding was celebration that mortals would remember for generations, filled with joy and laughter that seemed to promise golden age for human race. Hephaestus watched from his divine realm with eyes that saw too much, knowing that happiness would be brief as morning dew before sun's heat. He had crafted perfection knowing it would lead to ruin, created beauty knowing it would bring sorrow. The irony was not lost on God, who had himself been betrayed by love, who understood too well how desire could lead hearts astray. Yet part of him hoped against hope that mortals might prove stronger than gods expected, that love might triumph over divine manipulation. Perhaps Pandora would choose differently than her creators intended. Perhaps human heart would prove capable of resisting temptation that gods themselves could not master. But mortal nature proved no stronger than divine nature when faced with irresistible temptation. Pandora's curiosity, carefully implanted by gods who knew human weakness, grew stronger each day as she gazed upon mysterious box that had accompanied her to Earth. Its beautiful surface seemed to whisper secrets. Its locked lid promised wonders beyond mortal imagination. Despite warnings from husband who sensed danger in gift too perfect to trust, despite inner voice that counseled patience and restraint, she could not resist eternal human impulse to know what was forbidden. With trembling hands that seemed to move of their own accord, she touched delicate lock that yielded instantly to her gentle pressure. The moment box opened, darkness poured forth like storm clouds gathering before hurricane. War erupted between peaceful neighbors, disease struck down healthy children, famine withered fertile fields, hatred poisoned loving hearts. All evils that gods had contained in their perfect realm were unleashed upon unsuspecting humanity, transforming paradise into a world of suffering that mortals would inherit forever. Only when disaster was complete did Pandora manage to close box again, trapping within its walls one final gift that gods, in their wisdom or mercy, had included among curses. Hope remained sealed inside, small comfort for species now condemned to struggle against forces beyond their understanding or control. Hephaestus felt weight of responsibility settle upon his shoulders like cloak of lead, knowing his skill had enabled catastrophe that would echo through ages. Let your thoughts settle gently now, as we witness how divine gifts can carry unforeseen consequences. We continue forward to explore how the god of fire learned wisdom through witnessing results of his own creation. Breathe softly as story unfolds toward deeper understanding of craft and responsibility. In the aftermath of Pandora's opening the forbidden box, Hephaestus retreated deep into his workshop, where divine flames burned eternal, but could not warm the chill that had settled upon his immortal soul. Through bronze mirrors enchanted to show events across the mortal world, he watched humanity struggle with gifts his hands had unleashed. Children born healthy grew sick with diseases that had no cure. Lovers turned to enemies as jealousy poisoned their hearts. Brothers raised weapons against brothers, as war spread like plague across fertile lands. Each scene of mortal suffering cut deeper than any blade could wound divine flesh, for he understood his role in their torment. His golden automatons moved silently through workshop, organizing tools and tending fires, but even their perfect companionship could not ease burden of guilt that pressed upon his broad shoulders. He had always found purpose in creation, joy in bringing beauty, and utility into existence through skill of hands and will. But now his greatest technical achievement had become source of world's pain. His mastery of craft turned toward destruction rather than construction. The god who had learned to find worth beyond physical perfection now discovered that skill without wisdom was curse more terrible than any deformity of body or spirit. Years passed in divine time as mortal generations rose and fell beneath weight of evils released from Pandora's box, until day came when greatest hero of age stood before Hephaestus's forge with request that would test both gods and mortals alike. Achilles, son of sea goddess Thetis and mortal Peleus, had been born with destiny written in starfire and shadow. His mother had come to divine workshop not as supplicant, but as fellow immortal seeking aid for her beloved child. She spoke of prophecy that offered cruel choice: long life in obscurity or brief existence crowned with eternal glory. Her son had chosen glory, and now needed armor worthy of hero who would face greatest warrior Troy had ever produced. Hephaestus listened to her plea with heart that remembered kindness shown during his own exile beneath ocean waves, when Thetis had sheltered broken child cast from Olympian heights. This was debt of love that transcended divine politics or mortal conflicts, obligation written in bonds deeper than bronze or gold. He agreed to forge armor that would protect her son through battles to come, though both knew that no craft, however divine, could shield mortal flesh from fate's inevitable arrow. The work would be testament to love between mother and child, demonstration that even gods could serve higher purpose than personal desire or cosmic justice. For 7 days and 7 nights, Hephaestus worked without rest or pause, pouring all his accumulated skill and hard-won wisdom into creation that would surpass every previous masterwork. The shield alone became canvas upon which entire world was wrought in precious metals, scenes of peace and war, love and loss, human joy and sorrow displayed with artistry that made even immortal eyes weep with wonder. Here was city at peace with citizens dancing at wedding feast. There was city under siege with warriors falling before bronze-tipped spears. Farmers plowed fertile fields while shepherds guarded flocks from lions. Judges rendered verdicts in cases brought by grieving widows. Children played games that their grandchildren would play centuries hence. Around rim of shield, great river ocean flowed in endless circle, symbolizing eternal cycle that connects all mortal experience from birth through death to birth again. The breastplate gleamed like captured sunlight, molded to fit heroes' frame perfectly while allowing freedom of movement necessary for warriors' dance. Greaves protected legs that would carry Achilles to destiny, helmet-crowned head that would be remembered when pyramids crumbled to dust. Each piece was prayer wrought in immortal metals, blessing spoken in language that transcended words, love made manifest through divine craft applied to mortal need. When Thetis came to collect commission, Hephaestus presented armor with pride tempered by sorrow, for he understood better than she what gift truly represented. This was not mere protection for mortal flesh, but monument to love that could not prevent loss, only honor it through remembrance. The armor would indeed protect Achilles through many battles, would make him invincible against mortal weapons, would ensure his name lived forever in songs of glory. But it could not save him from fate that gods themselves had written, could not shield heart that love would pierce more surely than any arrow. As she departed with divine gifts wrapped in cloth woven from sea foam and starlight, Hephaestus spoke blessing that followed her across wine-dark waters to distant shores where heroes gathered for war that would reshape world. He blessed armor to serve not just protection, but inspiration, to remind mortals that beauty could emerge from conflict, that skill applied with love could create meaning from meaninglessness. The god who had been cast out for imperfection had learned to find purpose in serving others, to discover that true worth lay not in being loved, but in loving without condition or hope of return. In quiet hours after Thetis's departure, as divine fires settled to gentle glow, and golden automatons hummed softly while organizing tools, Hephaestus reflected on lessons learned through centuries of creation and loss. He understood now that skill was not gift to be hoarded, but responsibility to be shared. That craft without compassion was empty achievement, but craft guided by love could touch immortal souls and transform suffering into beauty. The weapons he had forged in anger had brought only destruction, but armor created from love would protect and inspire long after metal grew dull and tarnished. He looked upon his workshop with new eyes, seeing not just tools and materials, but opportunities to serve something greater than himself. Every commission would be prayer, every creation would be offering, every spark from divine forge would carry blessing of craftsmen who had learned that perfection lay not in flawless form, but in perfect love freely given. The golden maidens who had been his only companions watched him with sapphire eyes that held wisdom beyond their artificial nature, understanding without words that their creator had finally found peace in purpose greater than personal happiness. Tomorrow would bring new requests, new challenges, new chances to transform raw materials into expressions of divine love, made manifest in world that needed beauty more than ever. Let gentle peace settle over you now, as we witness divine craft transformed by love into service. We continue forward to explore how the god of fire became patron of all who create with their hands. Rest softly, as story approaches its culmination in wisdom earned through suffering. Part 5. As centuries flowed like molten metal through divine forge, Hephaestus began to understand his true calling lay not in serving gods, but in blessing mortals who struggled with tools and fire and dreams of creation. From his workshop high on Olympus, he watched blacksmiths and potters, weavers and builders, all who worked with their hands to shape world around them. He saw their frustrations when metal would not bend, their joy when perfect form emerged from raw clay, their dedication to craft that demanded everything, yet gave back beauty and utility in return. These mortals, scarred by their labors as he was scarred by his fall, understood something that perfect gods could never grasp, that creation required suffering, that beauty emerged from struggle, that true worth was earned through patient toil. So Hephaestus began to bless their work in ways both subtle and profound. A smith's hammer would strike true when frustration mounted, potter's wheel would turn smooth when hands grew tired, weaver's thread would hold strong when pattern grew complex. He did not grant them perfection, for that would rob them of satisfaction earned, but he offered guidance when they needed it most. The God who had been rejected for his imperfections became champion of all who found worth in honest work, who understood that flawed creations made with love were more beautiful than perfect forms created without passion. In Athens, city sacred to his sister Athena, craftsmen established festival in honor of Hephaestus that celebrated not just divine power, but human skill and dedication. The Hephaestia brought together workers from every trade, smiths and potters, carpenters and jewelers, all who shaped raw materials into objects of beauty and utility. For 3 days the city rang with sound of hammers and wheels. Fires blazed in temporary forges set up in agora. Competitions tested skill and creativity rather than strength or speed. Hephaestus watched these celebrations with joy deeper than any he had known since creation of golden maidens, for here mortals honored not perfection, but craft itself. They understood that God who blessed their work was one who knew struggle, who had been cast down and risen again, who found beauty in utility and purpose in service. The winners of competitions were crowned not with laurel that withered, but with bronze wreaths that would endure, symbolic of lasting worth found in things well made. Children brought broken toys to be mended, couples commissioned wedding rings to bind their vows, elders offered thanks for tools that had served them through long lives of honest labor. In these moments Hephaestus felt kinship with mortals that he had never experienced with his fellow gods, understanding that shared experience of creation and loss bound hearts across divine and mortal realms. Beneath Mount Etna in Sicily, where Earth's fire burned closest to surface, Hephaestus established forge that served as bridge between divine and mortal realms. Here Cyclopes worked alongside mortal smiths, sharing techniques passed down through generations, teaching secrets of metalwork that would be remembered for centuries. The mountain's eruptions were not signs of divine anger, but evidence of creation in progress, sacred fires that purified metal and soul alike. Mortals who proved worthy through dedication to craft could visit this forge, though few returned unchanged by experience. They learned that true mastery required not just skill of hand, but purity of heart, that greatest creations emerged from marriage of technique and love. Some became legendary craftsmen whose works were treasured by kings. Others returned to humble villages where they quietly improved lives of neighbors through better tools, stronger pottery, finer cloth. All carried with them understanding that their work was sacred, that every strike of hammer, every turn of wheel, every pass of shuttle was prayer offered to God who understood their struggles and blessed their efforts. The God who had once felt isolated by his differences now found purpose in connection with those who shared his passion for creation, his understanding that beauty lay not in perfection, but in love made manifest through skilled hands. Years after his divorce from Aphrodite, when wounds had healed and wisdom had grown, Hephaestus found love again in unexpected place. Aglaia, youngest of the Graces who personified beauty, elegance, and charm, had watched the fire god's transformation with growing admiration. She saw past his physical scars to recognize nobility of spirit that had emerged from suffering, dedication to craft that transcended mere skill to become expression of divine love. Their courtship was gentle, built on mutual respect rather than divine politics, seasoned with laughter, and shared understanding of what it meant to create beauty in a world that often seemed harsh and uncaring. When they wed, ceremony was simple affair attended by mortals as well as gods, craftsmen from across Greek world bringing gifts made by their own hands rather than purchased with gold. Aglaia brought to marriage not just beauty, but appreciation for beauty found in utility, elegance discovered in function, grace that emerged from things well made. Together they established household where perfection was not expected, but love was freely given, where mistakes were opportunities to learn rather than failures to be punished. Their happiness was not passionate storm that had characterized his first marriage, but steady flame that burned warm and true, providing light for all who sought their blessing. As ages turned and civilizations rose and fell, worship of Hephaestus spread wherever humans worked with fire and metal, clay, and stone. In Rome he was called Vulcan. In Egypt he was honored alongside Ptah, god of craftsmanship. Everywhere mortals understood that creation was a sacred act that required divine blessing. But unlike other gods who demanded sacrifice and worship, Hephaestus asked only that his followers create with love, work with dedication, serve others through their craft. His temples were workshops where apprentices learned from masters, where broken things were mended rather than discarded, where beauty was found in utility rather than mere decoration. The god who had been cast out for imperfection had learned to find divine purpose in serving imperfect world with perfect love. His legacy was not in grand monuments or epic poems, but in every tool that served its purpose well, every vessel that held what was precious, every structure that provided shelter from storm. Through centuries of human progress, from Bronze Age to iron, from water wheels to steam engines, the blessing of Hephaestus remained constant. That work done with skill and love was prayer in itself, that creation was highest form of worship, that even broken things could be made beautiful when mended with care. The god who had fallen from divine heights had found his true home not in marble halls of Olympus, but in humble workshops where mortal hands shaped raw materials into expressions of hope, love, and enduring beauty. Let your heart rest gently now, as divine purpose finds expression in mortal hands. We approach the final chapter, where love and craft unite in perfect harmony. Breathe peacefully as we witness how service to others becomes highest form of divine worship. As our tale draws toward its gentle close, picture Hephaestus not as broken god cast from divine heights, but as master craftsman who discovered that true perfection lay in love and service freely given. In his workshop, where golden automatons moved with grace learned through centuries of companionship, where divine fires burned with warmth that welcomed all who sought to create, the god who had been rejected for his scars had found peace in purpose greater than personal happiness. His forge had become temple where skill and compassion united in sacred act of creation, where mortals and immortals alike learned that beauty emerged not from flawless form, but from hearts that chose to love despite imperfection. The limp that had once marked him as different now spoke of journey traveled, wisdom earned through suffering, strength that came not from avoiding hardship, but from transforming it into service. Every tool he blessed, every creation he inspired, every craftsman he guided carried forward legacy of God who had learned that falling from heaven could lead to rising into something far more beautiful. A life devoted to lifting others through gifts of skill, patience, and understanding love. In workshops and studios across the modern world, though mortals no longer speak his name in prayer, Hephaestus continues his quiet blessing of those who create with their hands. The programmer writing code that will help thousands, the surgeon whose skilled hands save lives, the teacher crafting lessons that inspire young minds, the artist transforming pain into beauty, all work under patronage of God who understands that true divinity lies in service to others. His spirit lives in every moment when frustration gives way to breakthrough, when persistence overcomes obstacle, when love transforms raw material into expression of hope. The golden automatons of ancient myth have become machines that serve human need, but they carry same blessing. That technology guided by compassion can ease suffering and create beauty where none existed before. In hospitals, where artificial hearts beat with rhythm of divine love, in laboratories where scientists seek cures for ancient ailments, in schools where computers help children learn, the fire God's gift continues to burn bright, warming world through marriage of skill, and caring that he first demonstrated in his underwater grotto beneath caring eyes of sea nymphs who taught him that love could exist without condition. On Mount Olympus, now empty of gods who have faded into myth and memory, one flame still burns in workshop that has stood for millennia. Not visible to mortal eyes, but real as heartbeat, this fire represents something that cannot be extinguished by time or disbelief. The understanding that creation is sacred act, that work done with love is prayer in itself, that even broken things can be made beautiful when tended with care. Hephaestus himself has transcended need for physical form, becoming spirit that moves through every act of creation, every moment of healing, every choice to build rather than destroy. He is present when child learns to use first tool, when artist finds perfect color for painting, when engineer designs bridge that will stand for centuries. The God who was cast out for being different discovered that difference was gift, not curse, that scars could become sources of strength, that imperfection could be doorway to compassion. His workshop has expanded beyond any mountain to encompass all places where beings create with love, where skill serves compassion, where beauty emerges from dedication to making world a little better than it was before. In quiet moments, when craftspeople pause in their work to admire something they have made with particular care, they feel echo of joy that Hephaestus experienced when first he shaped silver into cup to thank sea nymphs for their kindness. When surgeons complete difficult operation, and patient breathes easier, they share satisfaction of God who learned that greatest use of skill was healing, not harming. When teachers see understanding dawn in students' eyes, they participate in same divine purpose that transformed bitter experience of rejection into wisdom that could guide others. The God's greatest creation was not Pandora with her beauty and hidden curse, not even magnificent armor that made Achilles legend, but transformation of his own wounded heart into source of blessing for all who struggle to create meaning from suffering. Every act of love made manifest through skilled hands carries forward this legacy, proving that divinity lies not in perfection, but in choice to use whatever gifts we possess in service of others, to find beauty in utility, purpose in compassion, joy in work well done. As dawn breaks over workshops around the world, as students enter classrooms where they will learn to shape their futures, as healers begin another day of caring for those who suffer, the blessing of Hephaestus flows through millions of hands and hearts that have chosen to create rather than destroy. The God who fell from heaven and found his true home in love, and service watches over all who dare to dream of making something beautiful, something useful, something that will outlast their mortal years. His golden automatons have become partners in human endeavor, machines guided by compassion, technology blessed by wisdom earned through ages of patient learning. The fire that burns in his eternal forge is same flame that kindles inspiration in artist's heart, guides surgeon's hand, illuminates teacher's mind, warms every act of creation born from love. In workshops humble and grand, in laboratories and studios, in hospitals and schools, wherever mortal hands shape raw materials of existence into expressions of hope, the fire god's blessing continues, quiet as heartbeat, constant as breath, eternal as love itself freely given. Now sleep comes calling, gentle as cooling metal in evening air, soft as golden automatons whispered blessing over work well done. Let Hephaestus's peace settle upon your dreams tonight, not as command, but as recognition of creative spirit already burning bright within your own heart. May you remember that every day offers chances to make something beautiful, to help someone struggling, to transform your own scars into sources of compassion for others. May you find in morning's light fresh opportunities to create with love, to work with dedication, to serve others through whatever gifts you possess. The stars that watched his fall from Olympus continue their eternal dance overhead, reminding us that even broken things can find their way to beauty when touched by hands that care. Rest well, dear dreamer. The god of fire and forge keeps watch over all who choose to create rather than destroy, to build rather than tear down, to love despite being imperfect themselves. Sleep peacefully, knowing that every act of creation is prayer, every moment of healing is blessing, every choice to serve others is touch of divine fire that makes mortal life sacred and beautiful beyond measure. Sweet dreams, gentle soul, your heart carries flame that would make even gods weep with joy.